Welcome into the Energy Tech Podcast presented by Opsite Energy, where today we're filming live from ENTELEC 2026, and we are excited to welcome James Risler from Cisco Systems. Guys, welcome to Galveston.
Hey, Jeff, it is good to be here. I am your co-host with the Energy Tech Podcast, Mike Flores, live here in good old Galveston, Texas, as part of ENTELEC 2026. And with us is, of course, with Cisco, Mr. James Rizzler or Risler. How do we say it?
Rizzler.
Yeah, all right, there we go. James Rizzler with Cisco. Good to have you on the show.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And, you know, I had you come by yesterday, and, you know, I really did take a look. And you and I were talking just off the set earlier. And we're going to touch a little bit on Cisco, some of the products, especially with IT/OT Convergence. But James, before I do any of that, tell me where you're at in Cisco and what do you do?
So I've been at Cisco for 16 years. I work in the learning group. So I help the team develop training around different aspects, enterprise, wireless, security. And now I'm focused on the operational technology space, since there's a massive convergence going on right now.
Yes. And so when you say massive convergence in terms of OT space, are we talking about just the convergence of OT IT as one aspect? Or are we talking about what we are seeing is getting data out of an air-gapped OT space and into the business? Is it both?
I think it's both. I think business wants the data because they want to be able to measure and then see how efficient that they are. So it's a business-driven thing.
Yeah.
Digitization is being brought on by that.
Yeah.
I mean, if OT had their druthers, they would probably say, let's avoid putting IT in here, because in the OT world, what do we see? Cyber attacks constantly.
Yes.
So let's keep that stuff out, and we'll continue to operate. But we know today that's just not a reality. So people that are OT professionals now have to learn IT, and IT people have to learn OT.
What do you think is the biggest misnomer that each one maybe has a take on each other? You know, I've had other guests on here, James, and so some of the other guests, you have 50%, I say 50, that say, well, you know, it's IT that isn't fit for OT. OT says, hey, you don't understand the types of protocols that might be in OT that are not relative to IT, right? So I think there's a combination of those, but in your experience, especially if you're on the learning side, tell me a little bit about what you're seeing in terms of the misnomer between the two.
That's a big matzo ball right there.
Yeah.
I would have to say that it's a combination of things. First off, the OT industry has been operating kind of like in its own silo with its own set of rules, its own set of environments for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And now they're being invaded by new technology, new products that business want them to put in place, or they have these old legacy RS-232 devices that they can't get anymore because companies are like, we're not going to build that. And then they have to replace it with something new, and then that means that they have to solve now a new communication problem. So back to your question, I think that the misnomer and the misunderstanding comes from the two sides have always approached things totally different.
Yeah.
IT approaches it, look, we have to enable the business, and, risk is a big issue, security is a big issue, but if we take down the business, we can usually recover the business pretty quickly. In the OT world, if you take down, you got human lives at risk in some situations.
Sure.
You've got processes that are dependent. We look at Colonial Pipeline. We look at different things like Land Rover. Those environments were disrupted by IT breaking down that brought the OT environment down.
Yeah, so let's talk about it. You alluded to something here. You said there was a recent attack. Talk about that for a second in terms of Land Rover.
Yeah, so Land Rover got hit with a ransomware, and it spread throughout the environment. They didn't really disclose what it impacted,
Sure.
but it impacted enough of their systems that they could not process cars. They could not order parts. They could not, their complete manufacturing line came to a halt. We don't believe that it actually impacted the manufacturing line, the OT systems, but it broke the IT system so bad that they couldn't operate anymore. So they were in essence down for 7-8 weeks, and it was such a big impact. It impacted the gross domestic product of the UK.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the line of what you're doing in terms of Cisco, how do you and how does Cisco bridge the gap between OT and IT? Because in my mind, when I think of Cisco, I do assign it to products, but it's definitely bigger than that. So tell me how you believe what you're doing in terms of the learning side and what Cisco does to bridge that gap.
So I think our team in learning, we're kind of approaching it as a discovery.
Yeah.
I'm not a native OT person, but I can look at OT protocols, Modbus, Profinet, Ether, IP,
Yeah.
and I can figure out what's going on because I've been in networking for 30 years almost.
Sure.
So I can figure out what's going on pretty quickly, but I don't understand necessarily the back-end process of what they're trying to do, what they're trying to produce.
Yeah.
So I listen. I ask questions. I listen to them. I let them advise me and tell me their challenges. So
Yeah.
we're coming in with our hands wide open saying, teach us. You tell us the challenges that you have and then what you need to be successful and how you're handling this. I'm not going to come in and try to dictate because it's not a win for anybody.
Yeah.
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 So listen and learn.
And so in doing so, what are some of the things that you're teaching with your learning group right now for OT practitioners? What are some of the newest things that your Cisco is doing for OT practitioners?
Great question. We're going to focus on a small space. We're going to focus just on the security aspect of it. Because we think that's the common denominator between IT and OT is they both have security challenges. And some of them are unique and some of them are the same. And what we're going to see more and more of is that these attackers are going to be using tools like AI, and they learn from each other. You go back to old attacks, Stuxnet, you go back to Conflicker. Each attack, and you look at it, has taught the next team of attackers how to operate. Today, we already heard from Dale Peterson earlier in the week that the attackers are teaching each other stuff. They're doing queries into OT environments coming in, and they don't necessarily know what the equipment is, but then they get information out, and I guarantee they're going to go to AI and to the internet and figure out what those devices are, and then start to build attacks custom for those types of devices.
Yeah.
So we believe that if you build OT security courses, IT OT security courses, and you start teaching OT, that it's going to level set everybody and it's going to be that common denominator.
Yeah. And so do you marry that with certain products? Here's what I mean. Usually I'm sure that in your learnings, there's things that you're covering, you might teach some of the, CISA and other groups put out tools or guidance around, the DMZ. They might, restrict the way that you actually parse out your network to avoid that east-west traffic. There's certain steps you want to take. They always use the word cyber hygiene, right? And so at Cisco, how do you take that and then marry that with your flagship products or products in line? How do you do that together?
That's a lot. That's a big question there. I think what you have to kind of do is go back to what we've learned in IT, because in IT we've already been dealing with east-west issues, cyber attacks, and it goes back to how these attackers work.
Yeah.
If you look at the some of the attacks that occurred on the UK medical system, that ransomware completely decimated the ability for them to operate, to see patients, anything. So you take those models that you had for those environments and how they were impacted, and then you bring them over in an OT thing and you replicate them. And then you look at, okay, can that be done in this environment? Probably not, because there's a lot of fail-safes that are already in the OT environment that prevent that. But you start working through scenarios where, okay, they're going to try these types of attacks. If they get into a device, we don't want them to go east-west. So you look at segmentation. We've been doing segmentation in the IT world for quite a long time.
Right.
So you take those concepts, but I guarantee you're going to have to tweak segmentation in the OT environment because of OT protocols are going to force situations like that.
Right.
So again, it's go into that environment, learn what the rules are based on how that environment functions, and then try to bring in best practices. I think that would be the best approach.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, one of the interesting things that you're seeing, as well as the convergence of IT, OT, is you see organizations that are adopting what's called the unified namespace, if you've heard that term.
Yep.
Okay. So in the unified namespace, you really, there's also the preaching, which is the death of the Purdue model. And sometimes, you have organizations in, you have OT, which is ISA 95. They tend to lean heavy on that ISA 95 model, level 0, up through layers into layer 4 and 5. And then you've got Purdue modeling, right, which is common. But you're seeing folks preaching the death of that. Is that a challenge for Cisco or your learning group, and how do you address that?
I think it's a challenge for everybody. I mean, everybody here, if that death of that happens, then what's the next model? What's the next approach that keeps you secure? So I would look at it like, okay, until you prove that there's a better ham and cheese sandwich than the one that we're eating, I'm going to stick with that until somebody proves that there's a better model.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know that killing off one, unless you have something good to replace it, is a win. I think the Purdue model works well. It's the depth layer of defense in depth. So you layer each layer, and then if the attacker tries to go too far in, then they're going to eventually run into a roadblock that they can't get out of, that they're stuck. And that's how you solve the problem. I mean, major corporations have been hacked. Other companies have been hacked, and they've seen people come in. Cisco Talos team, the incident response team, has seen people in networks, and we know that these attackers don't work alone. They work in teams, and sometimes other groups that maybe they're not necessarily friendly with them, they will go utilize that other team and pay them for an attack because they have a specialized skill to get them past a particular layer.
Yeah, I hear you. So let me ask you this. Is this your first time here at ENTELEC?
Yeah, I was here last year. I really enjoyed it. I thought this conference really gets to the heart of the matter. It hits on topics. You have a diverse set of people here that have different variety of education knowledge around their environments, focused on different things, and it's kind of enjoyable. I learn something every time I come here.
Yeah, so that's good. So James, you're obviously a guy that's on the learning side of this, right? I appreciate that. So let me ask you this. Now that you've been in ENTELEC, this is your second year. Tell me, what do you think? Because there's a lot of great things here, but at the end of the day, there's a saying that I have, and that is the room for improvement is always the biggest room in the house. If you felt that there was one thing that you think Cisco could offer right here at the conference, what do you think that might be other than what you're doing right now?
I think that we should probably bring and show a cyber range where you see live attacks against an environment that basically wakes people up, kind of like a slight slap in the face, and says, these are the challenges that we're dealing with today. I mean, I don't know how many people here have had cyber attacks. I've actually had it against, me personally, my PPI records, my PII records. So, I mean, I always try to tell companies it's not if you're going to be attacked, but when you're going to be attacked. And they might already be in your network today, you just don't know it.
You know what, James? You bring up a good point. We're on the same wavelength there. In fact, I think what I would like to see at ENTELEC, to add to your point, is instead of an innovation lab, I want to see something called the Cnovation Lab, which is exactly what you're talking about, which is, I think, people are what I call tactile learners, a lot of them. When they see it and they put their hands on it, when they understand it and actually, let's say, affect it or implement it, or when they try it or do it or demo it live, I think tactically and tactilely they learn, right? And so what I'm hearing from you is, let's have a lab where you as a tactile learner get to see this live in action. We get to demo this in a Cnovation type scenario.
Yep.
And you get to do that. I want you to take that back to Cisco, man. I'm just telling you, I think that you are onto something, man.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. I think that, like you said, people coming here, being able to touch that, actually see the screens with the cyber attacks going on, that would do a world of good at bringing reality to where the actual problem is today, and bring us all together to work on that problem together, because we're not going to solve it individually. It's going to take us as a team to work together.
Yeah, I like that. I want to get your take on something right now, James, that is just explosion. Two things. The first one is your take and learning, and maybe you can pair this with Cisco in terms of artificial intelligence. The second one is what you believe is going to happen in terms of AI agents going in the next, it could be a few months, it could be a year, but what is your take on both you and Cisco's learning in terms of AI and also AI agents?
Well, I see it, they're going to be one and the same. All of us are going to get the benefit of AI through agents doing work for us. Yeah. That's where you're probably going to see in this space, in the OT space, AI agents be able to go out and harvest data and be able to tell you stories, tell you about what's happening with that PLC at the pumping station, or what's how much gas flow is going down that line, and then you can say, okay, this is the capacity for it, and this is how much we can do. So those AI agents are going to be your friend, but you're also going to have to know that there's bad people in this world are going to take and build their own AI agents to do things that maybe you don't want them to do, and try to trick you or convince you or make you do something you don't want to do or that environment to do. Yeah. So AI security is going to be right in our faces. We're all going to have to be concerned about it.
What do you think that you and on the learning side and Cisco are doing concerning AI readiness for customers in the OT space?
Well, we're building courses to kind of level set everybody, bring them up on AI, allow them to start experiencing it. You can go to netacad.com. There's free AI courses out there, and then on Cisco U, we have some training courses out there that we put out there for free at times, and they're AI specific, teaching you about the challenges with AI, the weaknesses of AI. We've all heard the term AI confluence, where basically AI basically gives us an answer. It's not the necessarily right answer, but because we haven't asked it the right question. So,
Yeah, so let me ask you this. Is Cisco doing the same thing? One of the things I notice is if you go look at folks like the GIAC, or you look at different organizations that are putting out training, do you see Cisco doing the same thing for their CCNA, kind of advancing the CCNA for AI?
Yeah. I can see the future having that in there. We're having discussions now. We're talking to, when we build courses at Cisco, we go and talk to people that do the job. Yeah. And they tell us what is happening today, and then they tell us what they perceive the future is going to be. And we aggregate all that data, and that data helps us determine what the job role of the future looks like and what the job role is here. And then we kind of map out a plan, for what the future CCNA looks like, what the future cyber person looks like, collaboration, wireless, whatever they may be, the work role we're working on, they're there to teach us about what that role looks like, so that we can go build the knowledge and the training to help lift people up so that they can go do those jobs.
Yeah. So having said that, James, what are you excited about, for you or Cisco in the future here for training? Like, there's got to be something that's got you excited, man.
Well, I would rephrase it, not excited, as I feel challenged. I feel like the OT space is so... I use the word bifurcated, but it's split up into so many different sub areas, where different protocols, different industries. You got manufacturing, you got industrial, you got power, you got oil and gas. Everybody's different. Yes. And that's this is an oil and gas conference, but there's still a lot of difference here. A lot of different protocols, a lot of different challenges, a lot of different issues. So the challenge that I see that gets me up in the morning is trying to figure out how to level set and create training that works in those different pockets without breaking the bank.
Yeah, so give me a sneak peek. What are some of the things that you guys are working on? Is there like I know you did allude to a little bit of modules, but is there something you can share? Like, hey, here's kind of a sneak peek. If you went here, you can catch anything?
Yeah, we're starting to release some training on Cisco U.
Okay.
NetAcad's released a bunch of courses out there for free. NetAcad's part of Cisco as well.
Okay.
And Cisco U, we've released some security training on there. We're working on other types of security training, and we're coming out with some cyber vision training. So we got some good things coming, and hopefully next year we'll be able to come and maybe show some. What was that term you used?
Yeah, I call it a Scenovation.
Scenovation.
I think
like that.
Scenovation would be good. I am telling you right now, I'm working with a customer in California, and we are looking at cyber vision and sensor capability and implementing that as part of an OT network. So we're doing that actually right now, and that was one of our recommendations. Was some of the Cisco platform there, which is a big deal. I really liked that Cisco put out beautiful documentation on that. And so it's not just a training, but it is the documentation that makes sense for somebody in the OT space.
Right.
So I saw that as a lot of value, but I do want to like to see, I think that's a great idea on Scenovation and seeing that as part of ENTELEC. And, you know, you've brought some really good challenges to what you're seeing. And here's my last question for you. You've actually been here at the conference yesterday and today. What's your biggest takeaway so far?
Wow, I've been taking a lot of notes and writing up. I think there's a few bullet points. And the first bullet point is that I think connectivity, everything is going to be more connected. So that's the first thing that I'm seeing here is everybody's dealing with that connectivity problem. If you go from booth to booth to booth, you'll see the number one thing they're talking about is connectivity. When you start to connect things, that's when the risks and challenges start happening.
Yeah.
So how do we then make sure that when you connect things, you're secure? So those are the two biggest points I'm walking away with.
All right. You know what, James? That's exactly right. I think there is some security anytime you're connecting, security anytime you're collecting to secure it, right? That's a big deal. It was great to have you on the show. Mr. James Risler with Cisco. It's great to have you. He is here you can catch them at the Cisco booth here at ENTELEC 2026. I'm your co-host, Mike Flores, with the Energy Tech Podcast with my guest, Mr. James Risler with Cisco Systems. Good to have you, man.
Thank you very much.
That was awesome.
Thank you.
That was good.